Okay, so my name is Sidney Refutation, and the main claim I'm responding to is that autonomous cars have a negative impact on society. So that person's secondary claims were that that self-driving cars will be too expensive to make, there will be unanticipated issues, and they will create a more technology-dependent society. So the first claim I will be responding to is that the cost of the cars will make them unaffordable. Currently, these cars are actually in the testing phase, so they really can't be purchased by the public. And they're sort of illegal to drive right now because they're practically not ready. So that makes the unaffordability problem not really relevant. And let's say they make it past the testing stage. It'll sort of take years for people to want to switch to it because of the cost and because the majority of people already have cars and they're not willing to give up their cars to buy something that might be like just there more expensive. So it really doesn't cause a problem. Also, if they decide to mass produce these cars, the cost will go down because there will be more people playing in the market wanting to sell these cars. And an example of this is that in the past, cars were actually considered luxury items, but as Ford introduced the Model T, it was the first mass-produced car that actually regular folk could buy, and this is possible with the new autonomous cars as well. Okay, so the secondary claim that I will also be talking about is that the unanticipated issues with the cars. So as I mentioned before, these cars are still in the testing phase, and these issues will be solved throughout testing, such as the advocate had mentioned the incidents that had happened with these cars. But in these incidents mentioned in the article itself, it says that the injuries have all been minor. That's because of the speed the car was going at, meaning that they would be safe. And if they were to be mass-produced and used throughout all of society, they are more likely to sync the computers between the cars so that they don't crash into each other, and the likelihood of safety will go up. And in the Google article that he actually used, Google itself put a pro side to the cars. There's not just cons to it, and that it could probably bring down the rate of traffic and also bring down the amount of accidents due to things that they could do with the computer itself. The third claim I would be talking about is that it will contribute to a technology-dependent society. So this is basically made up of assumptions because the person really didn't use evidence or facts or testimonies from experts to say that technology does have this impact on people, where they like don't know how to add or subtract using a calculator and stuff like that. And really, there's no danger of this if people really can't afford to switch to these cars. So it goes back to the whole, it's a speculation, will it actually go through past the testing phase? Because they could be like concept cars where they make a couple, they test them out, but in the end, sometimes they don't go through, and they are basis for models later on in the future, like way later on, decades, even centuries later. So, in conclusion, I believe that the main claim that autonomous cars will have a negative impact on society is mostly on speculative evidence, and there needs to be more backing and support to this main claim in order to help prove their point. Thank you.
Well, I thought you did a very nice job presenting that. For somebody who felt a little bit reticent before, I thought that you were pretty straightforward and clear. You explained your ideas directly. I thought that was fine. Maybe you could use a little bit more information in a couple of spots, but the concepts, I think, are straightforward. On the testing issue, you say, look, we're in the early phase on this. The cost doesn't really matter that much. They can't be purchased. Like you and I talked about before, there's also this dilemma that's built in there. Look, if nobody can afford them, how can they be risky? Because nobody's going to be driving them. You know, there's a built-in assumption here that we know in the long term that these things might happen, but that's a long way down the road, and by the time it gets to that point, costs are going to drop, safety issues will be solved, that sort of thing. And I thought that you explained that position pretty well. The argument about the unanticipated issues, that could be a little bit sharper when you talked about the potential crashes or other problems that came up. The idea of syncing the cars and preventing a whole bunch of problems, I think that needs to be developed as a good counterclaim on that point. The Google article probably, I mean, you made reference to it. It's not being quoted directly, so I don't know exactly what it says, but it says the rate of traffic or the rate of accidents could change dramatically. So what are the dramatic claims? Let's say if it's likely that we're going to have almost no accidents because all cars will be synchronized with one another and they can't crash into each other essentially because they're programmed not to do that, and unless somebody breaks the car in some way, you're not going to have that issue. That sounds pretty good. And even if they do occasionally do it, the argument is it's probably going to be far less frequent than what's going on currently with cars that are driven by regular drivers. Autonomous cars, doesn't matter if you're drunk. Autonomous cars, doesn't matter if you're texting. Autonomous cars, doesn't matter if you fall asleep. Those are the kinds of things that cause accidents on the highway, and none of those things will be causing accidents if autonomous cars are put in place. That's the kind of thing that I think there's a little bit more argument there to make, that maybe that could have been developed more. Maybe that would have been the difference with the extra amount of time. But that was the only thing. Like I said before, I thought the presentation was really clear. You cite the arguments, you explain them pretty clearly, and you do a good job speaking to us. And I appreciated that very much. Thank you for going tonight. Okay.